I tried not to shake as I swallowed the lump in my throat. I stood up from the floor, brushed myself off. The man in the pinstripe suit smiled, waiting patiently, hands tucked into his pockets. His joy in the moment was all but comforting. "Okay," I replied, trying to not allow the tremble in my voice to be too clear. "Well, if we're going to do business, the first thing we're going to need is a change of venue. Somewhere I don't have to worry about being dunked into a pool of lava, or having some kind of magic used on me that I just don't understand." The man in the pinstripe suit raised his hands. "As you wish," he said, smiling, spreading his arms widely, snapping a single finger. Once again, I found myself in a different place, other than my room. I looked around. It seemed like a room with a red atmosphere to it. There was light. You could see clearly, yet there was no source for where the light was coming from. It just seemed to be ambient, coming from everywhere. The floor was a checkerboard pattern made of red and black tiles, each even larger than I was. The ground seemed solid enough, man-made, yet the more I looked into the distance around me, the more I simply couldn't see an end to it. There were no buildings or trees, nothing in the distance. It just seemed to stretch on, as if it went on forever. "Where are we?" I asked. The man in the pinstripe suit smiled. "Welcome to the Ring Eternia. I doubt you can fathom the importance of this place, or the things that have transpired within, but it is the perfect place for our little game, shall you call it, and fits the description of what you requested quite nicely." The man in the pinstripe suit extends his arms, closing both his fists tightly. Then he lowered them down, turning his knuckles palm up, and when he opened his hand, there were two objects, one in each side, in each hand. From the short distance away I could easily tell what they were. They were chess pieces, both kings, white and black. He quickly grasped the white piece and threw it over to me. I caught it in my grasp and looked at it. On inspection, it seemed to be a chess piece, a king, but unlike every other chess piece I had ever seen, this one seemed special. The ornate nature of the carving, gold strings seemed to flow through it, as if it was mined from marble that somehow had gold inside of it. And something, I don't know what exactly, but something told me that this chess piece was far more special than the mundane chess pieces I was used to. "Allow me to explain," the man in the pinstripe suit announced from his position in the room. "Here in the Ring Eternia, there are rules. Rules that even I, with all my power, am not in control of. Here, men of incredible power play games, but not just any normal, everyday, average games. No, grand games that decide the fate of things far beyond your understanding. The fate of the world has been decided in this room on more than one occasion. If you want to know the rules, it's quite simple. Until such time as the game has begun, neither opponent is allowed to bring any kind of harm to the other. No matter how powerful you are, it basically amounts to nothing so long as you're in this room. One can, of course, use magic and other abilities. However, anything that has any kind of effect on the opposite player is strictly forbidden and thus impossible to achieve. Meaning, I can't use any kind of magic on you. In fact, I can't even teleport you out of here anymore. Not without your permission. And even then, you get to set the destination, not me. So basically, in terms of power, right now, you and I are as even as it could possibly be. Now, as for how it works beyond that, I am the reigning champion, and as such, naturally have to take a disadvantage, meaning you get to set the terms, meaning the match we have, the rules we follow, and all such standards that deal with it decide. After you have decided the terms of our little encounter, you will simply lay down your chess piece, and the chess piece will turn your desire into reality, enforcing those rules on everything that resides within this realm. Of course, do understand that while you do get to set the rules of the game does still have to be fair. The chess piece will not enforce rules that give either player an advantage, meaning you can't do silly little things like say the game is called You Win and automatically claim victory, or say that you have the ability to read my mind while playing the game. Regardless of what rules you enforce, they have to be mutual, fair and even for both parties. As long as you abide by those tenets, you can make anything possible and enforce any rule you see fit. And this room will force me to abide by them, whether I like it or not. So, young regiment, you wanted a more even playing field. You wanted to decide the rules of engagement. And now you have exactly that power. What's your move, Regiment P. Worthington? I stared down at the chess piece in my hand. All of that power, the power to enforce rules, even against him? Would he really give me that kind of power? And what happens if I lose the game? What happens if I win? I suppose he did say that I set the terms, so as long as the terms are fair, I could set whatever standard that I want for who gets what. But why? Why would he do that? Is he just that confident? The thoughts raced through my mind as I stared at the chess piece, wondering how best to use it. But before we begin, I'm feeling a bit parched. How about we have ourselves a nice cup of tea? The man in the pinstripe suit says, smiling, raising one hand and snapping his fingers. And suddenly, a table with two chairs appears in between us. A steely black table. It looked ornate enough. Across it, a red tablecloth, neatly placed. The chairs, both brown, elegantly carved from wood. The head placement on the chairs also resembled kings from chess pieces. Now isn't the time to be afraid, I thought to myself. You've already started this game. Play it. So I, calmly as I could, walked up and took a seat at the table, and as did the man in the pinstripe suit, sitting my opposite, still smiling as he looked across at me. He snapped his fingers again, and to the left I saw a light, a shimmer of red, and suddenly a doorway appeared, standing in the middle of the room with no frame or walls attached that seemed to lead nowhere but back into the room. And yet the doorway began to open, and as the door opened, on the other side there was, strangely enough, a regular light. In the background, it appeared as if it was an office building. There were people sitting at desks and looking like they were doing paperwork, but there were also very strange things, creatures that I couldn't identify moving around in the background, and yet the people at the desks seemed undisturbed by this, as if it was just part of their regular business day. And then suddenly, stepping into the frame of the door, a beautiful woman, tall with long blonde hair, a set of fine glasses, wearing a pristine white dress with golden inlays. Small golden colored straps and ribbons decorated the dress she wore. She was quite elegant, walking with confidence and purpose, carrying in her hands a small tray with 2 teacups and a nice little teapot. As she stepped into the room, at first she seemed to begin striding over as if she's done this 1,000 times. But the further she stepped into the room and towards the table we were sitting at, her pace began to slow as she looked around at her surroundings. And about halfway between the door and our table, she stopped walking. "The ring Eternia," she announced, looking up and around at all of her surroundings. She then looked back down towards the man in the pinstripe suit, sitting opposite me of the table, and then she turned her gaze to me, and a very surprised look, and and then frightened came over her face. Suddenly, she began pacing rapidly towards the table, approaching with great haste and placing down the tray. She looked at the man in the pinstripe suit. "What are you doing?" The man in the pinstripe suit looked at her with a slight smile. "Well, I would have thought that were obvious. I'm playing a game." The blonde woman looked quite upset. "In the ring, Eternia? This is too much. Look, he is just a child. This is far beyond what is called for. He is far from ready to be somewhere like this. It's not like you," she said, placing her hands firmly on the table, glaring at the man in the pinstripe suit. The man in the pinstripe suit seemed to blow her off. "Don't look at me," he said. "Our young friend here is the one who suggested we play an even-sided game, that we do business in a balanced location, where my power doesn't hold so much sway. If you want the game to end, why don't you talk to him?" he said, with a somewhat maniacal chuckle. The young blonde woman seemed perturbed and very upset with the man in the pinstripe suit. While he was chuckling, she most certainly was not. She let out a small growl of frustration. "Fine then," she said. She quickly paced her way over to my side of the table, stood beside my chair, and looked down at me. Hello, young man," she said, kneeling down, placing her hand gently on my arm. "I know this must all seem very amazing, and you might think this is fun or entertaining, but I think you don't clearly understand the nature of what's going on. This is a very dangerous place. You are not safe here. I know my friend over there can seem quite scary, and he has been known to be quite rude on occasion, but he does offer fairly fair and balanced deals, all of which usually don't end with anyone dying. So this place isn't really necessary, young man. You should just let him take you back home and finish whatever deal you're cutting with him there." The woman seemed quite nice, and as well as being nice, she actually seemed fairly concerned about my well-being, as if I was in some kind of danger that I wasn't really aware that I was in. She talked to me as adults usually talk to children when they don't realize the danger they're in, like when a mother sees a child playing with a snake. She was trying to be comforting, but she wasn't very good at maintaining what you might call a poker face. It's obvious that she was scared. Not for herself. She was scared for me, trying to calmly coerce me into changing my opinion on where we should do business. Is this a trick from the man in the pinstripe suit? I thought to myself. This woman seemed very nice. Why would she be working with him? No, it doesn't matter, I thought to myself. This is a game I have to play. I looked away from her towards the man in the pinstripe suit, calmly sitting at the other end of the table. "No," I replied. "I'm going to be staying right here. This is a game between me and him. He thinks he's going to win, and he's wrong. I have every intention of finishing this. This is our business arrangement, and I don't need you looking over my shoulder in order to play it." It was at that point that the beautiful blonde woman's outward exterior, her act of calm and composure, completely snapped. She grabbed me by my shoulders tightly, her grip ironclad. She shook me. "You don't understand," she shouted. "This is not just a little game. This is not some simple child's trick like pulling a rabbit out of a hat. The danger of this place is beyond your comprehension. People have died in this room. So many of them, there is hardly a count for it. If you think you can beat him at a game, you're wrong. It's not a matter of you being intelligent or being good at something. Even if you were an adult, even if you had hundreds of years of experience, even if you were a powerful mage, it wouldn't matter. You can't beat him. It doesn't matter what game you choose, what tactics you play, what advantages you rely on, whether you believe he has weaknesses or not. Just because you get to set the standards of the game doesn't mean you can win. His abilities stretch far beyond simply being able to snap his fingers and make things appear or disappear. He is more than a practitioner of powerful magic. He is a master of everything. No matter the game, no matter the challenge, he always wins. During my employment alone, I have watched more than 100 men meet their end in this room. Men with decades of experience, masters of every game you can think of, masters of magic who could rewrite time itself, angels, demons, it doesn't matter. You have to give up now, before the game starts, before your fate is sealed, she shouted, shaking me, the look of fear and terror on her face. There was no way that this was a trick. The look on her face was absolutely genuine. She was trying to save my life.